Buying a condo in Miami is an exciting event, but it can catch many first-time buyers or out-of-towners by surprise because of how different the process is. For example, many New Yorkers used to submitting multiple, completely non-binding offers are shocked by how contractually binding offers submitted in South Florida can be. However, with a little bit of studying the process, which we've discovered in detail below, we're confident that you'll find buying a condo in Miami to be refreshingly straightforward and even advantageous from a negotiating perspective. Do your initial Miami home search by yourself. You should always start your home search by yourself, especially if you're moving to a new city like the many people that have left New York in droves for Miami. Depending on how quickly you need to move and how much time you have to search for a place, it may even make sense to rent first for a year so you have more time to find a place of your choosing. If you're like most people, you've probably visited Miami before and stayed somewhere, say Miami Beach. However, Miami is a large city with almost 3 million people as of 2019 for Miami-Dade County, and many diverse neighborhoods worth exploring. Unlike New York City, where everyone just wants to live in a few neighborhoods like the West Village or Meatpacking District, Miami offers a diverse range of neighborhoods from bustling Brickell, quiet North Beach to leafy Coconut Grove. The easiest way to get to know the city and discover what neighborhoods you can imagine living in is to explore it on your own first. You could do this by making reservations at the many great restaurants that Miami's booming culinary scene has to offer, or simply walking around the various neighborhoods after your meal. Or you could stop by open houses on your own in various neighborhoods and then drive around afterwards to get a feel of the place. Why do we recommend searching on your own first? Because it's nice not to waste your buyer agent's time if you're not even sure yet which neighborhood you want to live in, or even whether you want a condo or a single-family house. Even though buyer agents are incentivized to help you find a place and close, they do work on commission, and they won't get paid a penny if they end up spending all of their time with a client who wasn't serious. Just like in NYC, buyer's agents in Miami typically do not have exclusivity agreements in place with their buyer clients. As a result, there's no real assurance that they will get compensated anything, and the buyer could decide to stop working with the agent without consequences at any time. Pro tip: even the most patient of buyer's agents will lose faith in their client over time if the buyer client keeps viewing listings without making an offer, or worse, makes offers that they always back out of. Do you really want to spend your finite supply of goodwill with your agent so early on, or would it not make more sense to loop in your buyer's agent once you're serious about buying a place and know what you're looking for? Get pre-qualified for a mortgage so you'll know your budget. The next step is to speak with a mortgage banker or two to get a mortgage pre-qualification letter, which you can get after a 15-minute phone call during which you'll share some high-level financial information about yourself. At this stage, there's no document verification, and the banker is simply giving you an idea of how much you could potentially borrow if everything checks out. Why should you get pre-qualified for a mortgage? You should get pre-qualified for a mortgage before going too far in your initial search, so you'll have a better idea of how much you can afford and how much banks will actually lend to you. Unless you're an all-cash buyer, this information will be critical to determining your price and budget when searching for condos to buy in Miami. As a secondary benefit, having an official mortgage pre-qualification letter from a reputable lender gives assurance to real estate agents and sellers that you are a credible potential buyer. Will mortgage pre-qualification hurt my credit score? Generally speaking, no. Most lenders would just ask for an estimate of your credit score, i.e. oftentimes just a range versus your exact score, though some might make soft credit inquiries, which won't affect your credit score because soft inquiries aren't attached to a specific application for credit. Be careful, however, if your lender intends to make a hard inquiry, which can affect your credit. There is no need to run a hard inquiry at this point, especially when you are simply looking for an estimate of how much you can borrow and don't intend to necessarily proceed with a mortgage or with that specific lender. In fact, having a rogue lender run a hard credit check at this stage can be quite detrimental to your credit score, as it'll be treated as a separate inquiry. This is bad because your credit generally won't get penalized if you get hit with multiple inquiries of the same request type within 14 to 45 days, i.e. you're buying a home and have several banks run your credit while shopping for the best mortgage. However, if a rogue lender hits you with a hard inquiry very early on for a pre-qual, and then you have to run your credit again several months later when you're actually looking to buy, then it'll look like you've made multiple requests for credit versus just one. Pro tip: if you just want an idea of how much you can borrow without having to speak with a banker, check out our handy mortgage affordability calculator. Alternatively, if you're dead serious about buying a place, it doesn't hurt to get started with the mortgage pre-approval process, which takes time, but you might as well get started early. Plus, a mortgage pre-approval is viewed even more credibly than a mortgage pre-qualification by sellers and agents. Find a buyer's agent who will give you a commission rebate. Once you've figured out how much you can afford, what type of property you'd like to buy, and where generally you'd like to buy, it's time to find a buyer's agent who will rebate you a portion of his or her commission to you post-closing. Why should you get a commission rebate? Because the typical real estate commission in Miami is 6% of the sale price, which is split equally between the buyer's agent and the seller's agent if the buyer has an agent. If the buyer is unrepresented, the seller's agent typically receives all 6% of the commission. On a $1 million Miami condo, your buyer agent stands to earn $30,000 in commission when you've done much of the initial searching yourself. Simply put, the amount of commission earned on a per-hour basis simply doesn't make sense for larger transactions. So why not sign up for a Hauseit buyer closing credit and get some of it for yourself? What's wrong with asking an agent friend for a rebate? You could, of course, ask a real estate agent friend to give you some of the commission back, but most big brokerages will not allow discounting of any type. Then you'll be stuck with an unsavory situation of your friend cutting you a check directly post-closing instead of the brokerage writing you a check, which is what should happen. When the brokerage writes you a commission rebate check, it's not counted as income, but rather as a reduction in your cost basis. In other words, commission rebates are not taxable and you will not be issued a 1099. However, if your agent friend writes you a check directly against the brokerage's wishes, then it's much more gray in how that money will be treated for tax purposes. Will it count as a gift? That may pose an issue for larger rebate checks over the annual gift tax exemption amount, meaning your agent friend may have to pay a gift tax on anything over the exemption amount. Pro tip: don't make your friendship awkward by asking your friend to part ways with potentially much needed income. Being a real estate agent may be his or her only job, and asking to take food off their table is kind of gauche. It's much better to sign up for a Hauseit buyer closing credit with one of our experienced agents who have already agreed to do so. View as many listings as you can across neighborhoods. At this stage, it's important to view as many listings as possible across different neighborhoods. Remember, your goal at this point is not to figure out generally where you want to live or if you want a house or condo, but to view as many comparable listings as possible so you have a view of the market and relative value. The importance of this cannot be overstated when trying to compare options and decide whether specific condos are priced right. Sure, you can rely on your agent to provide you with pricing and comparables analysis, but since you're the ultimate decision maker, it's important to be able to judge value on your own. Seeing many properties will even help you judge and compare square footage numbers as advertised between different listings. For example, even though agents should be using square footage numbers from public tax rolls, the Miami-Dade property appraiser for example, you will often see conflicting numbers on the MLS and public search websites such as Zillow. As a result, it's always safer to gauge for yourself whether the square footage number advertised seems approximately right or not, and the only way to do this is to have seen many comparably sized properties. Lastly, seeing as many listings as possible across your price point helps you learn what features you value and how to value them. For example, how much is a direct ocean view worth to you? Or a gym? Or dozens of fitness classes per day like you'll see at the Carolina Miami Wellness Resort? As you would expect, comparables analysis is more of an art than a science. There's no exact formula for valuing certain amenities and features, and you'll simply have to view a good amount of properties to gauge relative value for yourself. Get pre-approved for a mortgage to show you're serious. If you need a mortgage in order to buy a condo in Miami, then it's time to get a pre-approval letter from a reputable bank. We recommend getting at least two pre-approvals in case something unexpected comes up with one of the lenders and they won't be able to fund at closing. When should you start the mortgage pre-approval process? It's time to start sending in your financial documents to your mortgage bankers and kicking off the mortgage pre-approval process once you're fairly confident that you'll be making an offer within the next few months and that you are most likely going to buy something. As we discussed in the previous section on getting pre-qualified for a mortgage, there's no point in going any further with the loan process unless you are fairly confident that you will be buying versus renting. Remember that your lender will need to run a hard inquiry on your credit as part of the loan pre-approval process. Why is having a mortgage pre-approval letter important? A mortgage pre-approval letter demonstrates to real estate agents and sellers that you are serious enough about buying that you've been partially underwritten and conditionally approved for a mortgage by a third-party financial institution. Having a mortgage pre-approval letter also demonstrates credibility and an ability to close because you've submitted financial information which has been vetted by your lender. This makes real estate agents' jobs easier because the mortgage banker has done the hard work of verifying whether you have the wherewithal to actually make a purchase of a certain size.